Hi, guys, and welcome to another episode of Unresolved Textual Tension. My name is Elin, and I am joined today by my lovely co hosts, the beautiful, vivacious Maria and the dark and deep, broody Katie.
Hello, guys, and welcome
Howdy.
to another episode.
Howdy.
Um, as you can see,
Howdy.
we have the formerly referred to as Lindbergh, the lovely Elin. And we're what are we reading? We're reading Absolution. Yeah, it is
Yes.
Absolution. The names were getting really
Yes.
confused. We're reading Absolution by Jeff Vandermeer. It is the unexpected fourth book. At this point, it's very expected. This has been pushed back like 8 months. We were supposed to read this when it came out. It's been a very long time.
I started listening to the audiobook while I was drunkenly walking. I had a few shots and I was like, you know what? I'm going to go for a walk. And so while drunk, walking next to the glittering water beside my house, I was like, alligators. Area X.
This is not the book this is not the book I'd recommend that for.
No.
But yeah, so we all of us have read the previous books. Elin, give us your experience with the first three books, because like obviously there's a video of me, Will, and Katie talking about our experiences. What was like? How did you feel about them?
Let's say I read Annihilation years before the podcast did these books, and I thought, that was a freaky book. What the fuck happened? And moved on with my life and never knew there was a sequel. And I saw that they had made a movie out of it, and the movie was even weirder, like strangely even weirder than the book. And I was like, what the fuck is this? Were someone high when they wrote this? And then UTT did the first book, and I was like, oh shit, I'm gonna have to reread this now. Oh. And I actually listened to it this time on audiobook, and I was like, oh, I see it now. I see what you did. I loved the biologist's story in the first book. I thought it was really sweet and deep. And Vandermeer has this way of kind of sneaking up on you with his characters, because for a long time you're like, this person is just a bit weird and annoying, kind of. And then he gives you their personal intrigue, their deep backstory, and you're like, oh, baby, let me take care of you. Yeah. So the guys read the second two books, and I read them as well. I thought they were really wonderful. I know the third book was a bit meandering for those of you who have read it. Maybe it didn't entirely tie up the bag of what is going on within Area X, but it was still my favorite one because of that lovely couple and him slowly turning at the end, and it was just so sad and beautiful and poetic. Like, I love Vandermeer's writing.
It was really well done, honestly. So I didn't even, it's funny that you describe it that way as meandering, because I guess so. But what's funny is I actually thought the trilogy before this fourth book came out, I thought the trilogy was well done. I felt like it did wrap up what I needed it to wrap up, which is what happened to the biologist. And that's all I really cared about, to be honest.
That's true.
Like, I like that there's still a mystery of what is this? What is happening? I didn't need that answered. So I really liked that, spoilers, the biologist became part of Area X, and that she became like this really cool Leviathan-esque creature, and it was so satisfying. That being said, as I told everybody before we started recording, I thought that the fourth book kind of was like almost like I almost felt like it should have been an anthology, that it shouldn't have had a true title, that it should have been like an anthology of random bits and bobs of Area X stories. And because it's not really a true inheritor of the previous stories, I don't feel like. And so I think it's odd that this fourth book exists. But that being said, yeah, I agree with you. No, that third book was rockin'. Like, the narration, everybody. If you like beautiful, complex, sophisticated, interesting, unique, fresh language, this is the series for you. That being said, the repeated fucks in the fourth book at a certain point does grate on the soul a little bit, but it does make sense later on.
It's really funny because I think I'm glad that for the three of us, the third one is kind of the standout because it always has been for me. There was something just so compelling, and it was Will's least favorite. And I think,
yeah, this is why we had to ditch Will.
Yeah, because him such a potato. He was like, I just remember him being like, "But the themes," and I'm like, "What do you mean?"
And they're right there,
dudes. Like the scene with the tide pools with with our biologist and I forget
the copy biologist.
Yeah, what was our main character's name in the third book? I don't remember.
So the main character in the second book was Alex Rodriguez, but he went by Control.
Yeah.
That's how he was referred to. So it was Control.
That's the scene name.
Yes. And it was Control, and then it was him in the copy of the biologist. Yes. I forgot how he referred to her.
Was that Sky?
He ended up referring to her.
No, I didn't think so. I got confused though because I was like, for those of us listening, there's a character in this fourth book named Sky, and I was just like, oh, that name sounds vaguely familiar. And so, like, for a brief moment, I was like, am I getting like the lines mixed up? And I definitely was.
Yeah. But yeah, that tide pools. But even just like Saul Weintraub as just this tragic figure, his relationship with Gloria, I think about that moment at the end when Control goes down to the bottom of the tower and then jumps through and his limbs elongate. Like it was just such an incredible book that kind of, for me, perfectly encapsulated everything I needed from the previous two books. Because it answered one of the things I was talking to Will about earlier, and you guys tell me if you felt this. One of the ways I think this book I struggled a bit was Elian made the point that he presents a character who's kind of unlikable and then gets an incredible backstory. And the first chunk of this book, we're not given a character to attach to. We're getting a summary of something that happened and a point of view, someone who is digesting the information and giving it to us, but we know nothing about the person doing the digesting. And at first I wasn't even sure initially if the person who was doing the digesting was in that part of the story or was an observer. And it just, you lack that central figure to attach yourself to, and that becomes the person that you become scared for, that you become invested in. And eventually, like, the middle section of the book gives you that a little bit, and I actually found myself by the end quite charmed by old Jim. But like the first chunk of the book, you're just like, wow, shitty things are happening to a lot of people, but it isn't impacting me. Like, I'm not scared. I'm not freaked out.
I really liked the observation quality of that, though. I really did. And I thought it matched.
Yeah, in the first few chapters, it was delightful.
Oh, it was so good. That's the part that I think I said to one of my coworkers at work, I was like, God, it's like coming home. Like, just listening to that beautiful narration and just like the mystery, the mystery, really. I was going to say mysterious nature. The mystery of like what's going on and everything. It does feel really good. And then slowly but surely, you're kind of like, you kind of sit yourself into the bath of, oh no, we're in a different perspective. And the perspective is actually somebody reading these notes and everything. And it was a little confusing, but I thought it was well done in a very interesting, like, I thought it was well done in the fact that I wasn't so confused that I couldn't understand. And the fact that the transition worked the way it did, I thought was really like skillful. But that being said, I've got to say the old Jim bit, like, there were some interesting parts of it, but like somebody, I don't remember where I read this, but somebody said it was like a spy flick. And it is like a spy flick. And that you would think that would be fun, but there were some real big lulls in it.
I'd agree. Really quick, I realized we forgot to do a very fundamental step of the process. Premise. No, we did the intro. The premise of this, so if you've seen the 2 videos we did about the first 3 books, this series is called the Southern Reach Trilogy, and it is about a stretch of coast that has a weird and terrible phenomena happening that a secret government organization is hiding from the rest of the world, and it is sending expeditions into. The first book is about a biologist going on, I think it's the 13th mission. It's not actually the 13th, but she's going on what she thinks is the 13th mission, and her experience going into this weird place and interacting with this landscape. The second book kind of takes a step back from Area X and is about the organization running the expeditions into Area X and kind of the horror surrounding trying to contain this terrible thing that happened, but also the mystery about why it happened. And then the third book is the kind of it's a split timeline between the kind of locust point that caused Area X in the past and the characters from the first two books kind of continuing on in the last book, and it ends kind of bittersweet, tragic. There's this you end up respecting this book series is kind of like a horror series. Like it is kind of terrifying at multiple points. Again, I will maintain
Scariest moment at any point is the guy breathing behind the one guy's neck. Yes,
his neck on a fucking shelf. It's just terrifying. But it's got horror elements, but it also just it has this beautiful thing to say about change and
accepting change,
life, and it's just fucking gorgeous. Also, I discovered it was based on the stretch of land that he based Area X on, because we're never told in the book series where it is, and it's the panhandle of Florida.
I know.
It's a 14-mile hike in something Marks State Park. And so it's actually and I thought that the whole time. I'm like, this
Florida is hell.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Ooh.
Yeah. No, it's very cool. Florida in essence. Every like drunk boat. The fact that there's a character named Drunk Boat on a like stretch of land where there's like Everglades swamp comboed with like, I mean, there's alligators and there's like lots of different birds and like every moment of it you're just like, oh, this is Florida.
And it's humid, and there's something that it was really nice to get that solidified for myself when I read that. But the premise of this book, so Vandermeer, he writes the first three, kind of redefines science horror fiction.
Really, truly
a huge splash into the genre.
No pun intended.
And just like vibing out, and then he's like, you know what? I didn't answer all of the questions about what caused Area X and like who was at fault and everything. And he's like, so I'm gonna do it in a fourth book that I wasn't planning on writing, I guess. And that's Absolution. It is about before two of the parts, because it's technically three separate stories that are all tangentially related. The first one is about the first two are before Area X becomes Area X and kind of the lead up into it. And then the third one is the very first expedition that ever went into Area X that we read about and know about in the at the end of in the first book with the, or no, I lied, in the second book. You guys tell me if you had the same experience. I wish I reread the first three books when I went into this.
Oh my god, for sure. I had to Google stuff.
You so much. Yep.
Yeah.
I really should have done that, because it would have helped so much.
It was,
especially when the bunnies started showing up. I was like, this has happened before. Deja vu.
Yes.
Deja vu.
And so I kind of almost feel like Vandermeer did that on purpose to fuck with us. Because there's a lot of details, guys, that were hearkened to, but of course, because of the mystery horror aspect of it, were never evaluated or fully explained or anything. Good reason. Makes better tone and everything like that, and better storytelling. But because of that, when these things are allusioned to / literally put into the plot, you're like, am I missing something? Is there something here that I should be remembering? So I had to Google. I'm like, Absolution, references, are any of these? And so I was like, okay, no, this is all fresh and new. None of this is something. But it's like also the timelines get like really mixed up, which I think he does on purpose, because there's the whole essence of the trilogy is a mixing and melding of timelines. And so originally, funnily enough, I'm curious on your guys' takes. Originally, I was like, oh, this is an alien life form that's come, which I think it is, actually, originally, like, is what the concept was. But it's like, because wasn't it like something that was like, it got caught in the lighthouse glass?
Yeah, in the glass.
Yeah, but so this fourth book makes it seem less like extraterrestrial and more like interdimensional. And this interdimensional vibe really kind of like it both added to the ambiance and the mystery of things, but also ruined the initial clean cut lines of extraterrestrial for me. I don't know if that makes sense.
I would say a little bit for me.
I guess my
Just
question would
like
be did the if you experienced that same thing where it was like, oh, instead of extraterrestrial, interdimensional, like did that add to the horror or did that actually make it less horrific?
in general, I found this less scary than the first three.
What did you think?
I think, in a sense, we've been a little inundated to what Area
Yeah.
X is, so that the horror isn't as effective and
Yeah.
visceral anymore. We already kind of know what it's doing. We don't know why, though. And I had kind of already had canon that this is a terraforming device,
Oh,
and
that
that
makes
it's been sent from somewhere really far, far away. And interdimensional travel just makes sense. Like, how do you get through vast
other than
space?
interdimensional. Yeah, that makes sense.
It's funny because I think I had a similar thought because
You
I
did
read this
because
book
you mentioned
series.
it during our previous thing.
Yeah.
I remember.
But it ties to me. There's this horrific moment in a series I read, and I always forget the name of the series, but the first book was The Three Body Problem. And in the third book, there's this moment where there's this idea that like if you're in space and another spacefaring civilization realizes you are a civilization, their only choice is to kill you before you become a threat. And it talked about how intelligent civilizations in different dimensions were fighting these, we'll call it the Dark Forest Wars. And one of the ways it happened, and so huge spoiler if you haven't read that, skip ahead if you're reading the Three Body Problem series right now. Skip
Like-
ahead until
Like
wherever
20 to 35 seconds.
they create this envelope. And like there's these humans, they're out in space, they're on a spaceship, they're doing the thing, and they see like this flattened envelope in space. And they're like, what is that? And they go up and they kind of touch it. And it sets off this ripple effect, which collapses the third dimension into the second.
That's fascinating.
And it is this, and it's horrifying. It just
Yeah.
obliterates us and our place in the universe because it just collapses everything in the third dimension into a second dimension. And there's this one point where people are far enough away that they're watching planets flat in real time. Like they're far enough away that it
that
hasn't
is
hit them. And it is one of the most, when you realize what's
horrifying.
happening and it's such an existential dread because it becomes this unstoppable. And they also talk about how this is going to end the universe because every time they start collapsing dimensions, eventually you run out of dimension.
Yeah.
And because this is like, they talked about how there was potentially tons of dimensions before this, and that we've been just collapsing on ourselves and protecting ourselves in these really weird ways. And so the moment in that
I
book
hate
where
that
they
concept.
touched this thing, the moment when they touched this thing and you realized an unstoppable force had been triggered in a way that there was no escape. You could outrun it, and you would potentially, as an individual, be able to outrun it long enough that you would live. But
in your
as a
lifetime.
civilization, you could not. That's how Area X feels.
Yeah,
for
me too.
That it is this unfolding.
It's
like,
the end.
Blossoming.
It's the end.
But also in a way where like it's the end for us,
But the beginning for
but
something
not
else.
the end.
You know
of
what
life.
I kind of wish this was called, and I kind of wish it wasn't okay. My supposition before we get into plot retelling and stuff, I kind of wish the fourth book was what happened next rather than what happened in the past. Even though that wouldn't I think it would have had potentially more chance of being horrific. It's because it's an exploration of how much worse it could have gotten. And I kind of wish the name of it was Armageddon and instead of Absolution, or maybe it was Absolution, but it's the absolution of humankind and absolvent of the humankind. and we had gotten what the Earth became. Like, I don't actually want that, but like I would have almost preferred that over kind of what we got. But anyway,
I disagree because there's something beautiful about the copy of the biologist being able to live in Area X and live in outside of Area X in
oh,
this
you
way
mean like
where
where it just shut off on third book?
Yeah, but like it opened, like it just opened. Like the barrier was gone and it was going to continue, but like she was a person and a thinking being. So like our humanity would end, but there's going to be a different evolution. And so it actually ended, I felt quite hopeful in a very bittersweet way, and seeing the little like ferret version of Control being like, hi girlfriend, at the end.
That's what I mean though. That's what I mean though. Like the horror of somebody else's perspective. That's not really what I wanted. I just wanted it to end after the third book, to be completely honest with you. I didn't need anything else.
Yeah. No, not really. And at the same time, the moment I saw this was coming out, I was like, have to read it.
Yeah.
Have to read it.
Yeah.
What's gonna happen?
Okay. Speaking of,
it's like a Pandora's box. It's just, I'm gonna look inside just a little bit.
So let us look inside. What does happen? Let us begin.
Okay. So this book starts with the Dead Town disaster, which is, so we have this guy named Old Jim, and he is apparently in a place reading a bunch of files about the Dead Town disaster. And it's this weird thing that Central, so like, we never know what Central is throughout this series. And let me know if you guys had a better idea of it, but it's just like,
CIA, FBI,
spy organization,
CIA,
FBI, like just like super secret. Spy kids. They're the spy kids.
Yeah,
it's of this world.
And they sent out an expedition to this weird coast of Florida, called the Forgotten Coast, and it's kind of this like people go, they get stuck, they leave. Like the people that stay,
sounds like Florida.
Like, there's this listlessness, to it. And it's very rich in vegetation. You've got coast, swamp, marsh.
It's a great
fields,
ecological studies. As somebody who just went on a field trip with their students to a place called Nature's Classroom, where we looked at a whole bunch of Florida wildlife. Yeah, it's a petri dish of interesting evolution and interesting invasive species. Sorry, I'll just end it there.
And as a non-Floridian, non-American, I just think it's absolutely perfect that the Forgotten Coast is in Florida.
I know.
It just feels apropos. Just kind of the idea the world has of Florida. This kind of fits, but in this weirdly beautiful way.
Oh, it's so beautiful.
That makes me be like,
Florida, my home.
Florida. My home. the land of my childhood. Even though I grew up in the polar opposite part of from where this is kind of set. And again, we don't actually know if this is set in Florida. It is inspired by, but in my head it's set in Florida. But anyway, and they set a team of biologists to this place to do some studies, to study the flora and fauna, and also for some reason to release four alligators that they got from South Florida, that they don't actually say South Florida, but they got from a couple thousand miles south, that they're releasing up here to see what happens. And they've got like these harnesses on the cameras with
they want to know if they're going to accommodate to the current environment, or whether or not they have the homing beacon system within their biology to be like, I don't belong here, I must go south.
And that's also a lie. They don't actually care about the alligators. No. They're actually doing other fucked up shit that we'll find out later. But anyway, the biologists release the alligators. Something goes wrong. Not really sure. Records are a little musty. Something goes wrong with the gators. And then shit starts falling apart, where the biologists start going a little cray-cray. There's a point where...
So, as somebody who listened to the first 2 hours 3 times, what really sticks in my mind is this. We get recounted...
Why did you listen to it 3 times?
The first time I was drunk and walking. The second time, I thought we were going to do it sooner than we did. And the third time, we did it now. That's why I listened to it 3 times, because all 3 times I was like, I just wanted to be fresh in my mind. And so what really stuck in my mind were the characters in this part. And I feel like that was definitely on purpose, because they get monikers. We have the Mutter, which is a character who wrote a journal that's actually the most intact journal from the evidence locker of this whole expedition. And it just has some moss on it, and it's kind of beautiful. And like, I kind of want like a version of all three stories, but in like the aesthetic of the Mutter's journal. But anyway, the Mutter is just a biologist who goes into the mud and is actually researching a whole bunch of different things, including the fiddler crabs in the area. And we have what's this called? Man Boy Slim.
The medic?
Man Boy Slim, I was actually thinking of. Man Boy Slim, which is a like college dropout English major person or whatever. It doesn't matter. The point is he's
not part of
yes, that's what I was just about to say.
He lives
yeah, he's a local along with Old Boat. Is that what his name
Drunk
is?
Boat.
You were right previously. Drunk Boat. My bad. Drunk Boat, who's an old. I pictured an old man. I don't remember if he's described as that. And they're part of a local bar, the Monkey's Elbow, if I remember correctly. No, that's the name of the band. It's just called the Village Bar.
Okay, fair enough. And so the Village Bar or whatever. Literally, if you are a Floridian or if you've seen pictures of Florida, literally just picture a rundown beachside place. And so they've at this bar, and there's surveillance at the bar from Central. So we get these characters, and how are they interacting? How do they view the biologist, including the Mutter? And the Mutter, as well as several other characters that I actually have forgotten. I don't know if they had monikers.
They didn't have monikers, but some of them were referred to in
the
different
medic
ways.
Yeah, the medic is the biggest one. The medic's like a weirdo schmeardo who's
and team leader 1 and team leader 2
have a romantic relationship with each other, and they're both women. That's what I remember. But yes, so anyway, there's team leads. There's the Mutter. There's the medic. The medic's super weird. The Mutter is freaked out by abnormal things happening, such as these random ass white rabbits just suddenly appearing with little cameras on them that look really strange, and they're just like eating carnivorously the fiddler crabs, and the fiddler crabs are not like running away or anything. They're just like, oh wow, I'm being taken apart by rabbit teeth. And yeah, so it's just a really big ball of strange.
Yeah, and it's the minute the rabbits with the cameras show up, you're like, oh my god, these are time fucking traveling rabbits.
Yeah, I was like, am I losing my mind? Or did we see these rabbits released later in time?
Yes, in time
what
with cameras.
Happening?
Because it's something that happened that you learn about in the second book was there was this point where they were trying to see into Area X, so they got a bunch of white rabbits, they strapped some cameras onto some of them, and they herded them into Area X.
And the rabbits, it was horrifying. They didn't want to go. They didn't want to go in, and they forced them.
And
so
nobody
terrible.
Nobody knew what happened. The camera feeds, because they were they were watching it as it was happening. They cut out. They didn't get anything useful. And now, all of a sudden, while these biologists are doing this thing, there's originally it's just one rabbit with a camera, and nobody believes. Most of them don't believe her that it had a camera on it, but it's just eating these fiddler crabs.
And she's freaked. And that scene is so good by far. I think one of the best scenes in the whole book is when the Mutter. It's really beautifully described, guys. The description is that the way she walks on top of the mud, because she's so light and lithe, is that she's almost like a mud strider or a water strider, where she like walks on top because she has such little weight and she knows how to walk along the mud. So she's like a ballerina on the mud, and she's just catching like dragonflies, and it's kind of beautiful and artistic. And all of a sudden she sees this white rabbit crunching down, like almost like I can almost picture it like visually in a movie. Crunch, 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 crunch. And then you're just like overwhelming her senses, the crunching of the rabbit on the fiddler crab, and her just being freaked the fuck out by it. And she's so freaked out, she ends up running away, sinking in the mud, twisting her ankle, and going to the medic. and like there's a whole weird interaction there too. But like that's such a cool scene.
I would say it's one of my favorites of this first section.
Yes.
Yeah, it's a very good scene.
Yeah.
I really loved when they released the alligators as well, because that's,
oh my god,
just the visual of a whole army of biologists just tromping into the dead coast and just with their mysterious measuring instruments, and it's just such a good visual. And I really liked how there was almost a story of how the town viewed the intruders, and how the intruders became these like there were stories about them. They became legends in the local town. It was almost like a tale of how the town was changed by the
mythology
comeuppance of, yes. And that was really cool. But definitely the scene with the mother and the crab as well, because there was literally this moment when I was like, I have seen these rabbits be released later in the timeline.
Yeah.
And it's like, whoa. And obviously these rabbits are not the original rabbits, so they've been like changed and fused by Area X, and it's just such an interesting idea, and I totally see why he did that. He was like, now you're gonna be confused, eh?
and you really are, and the cameras are changed. There's a point later where you realize the cameras are these biological living materials. It's fucking terrifying, but it's like these are the thing. They're like the copy of The Biologist that we saw before, where it's the thing but a new thing version of it, and it's just terrifying. But it also immediately opens up the idea of time travel. So there's this point where we meet this character called the Rogue, and immediately I was like, who the fuck are you?
Yeah.
Who are you,
me
motherfucker?
Too. This whole book, I was like, who are you?
Yes, same. I have a question about that in a second. But before we continue, there's even this one section much later on, but I feel like we'll gloss over it as we get into more of the stuff, where it's explained that the Rogue that we just mentioned is actually shucking the cameras as
we would not have glossed over that.
Really?
That's one of the most powerful. Yeah, it's one of the most powerful scenes.
I would not,
and it's the basis of his relationship with the tyrant.
That's fair.
What are you talking about?
That's fair. But like literally, these cameras are almost like oysters. Like they're shucked at one point, so they have like an innards. And then also another character explains, "Have you done a what's it called? A
biopsy."
She doesn't say
vivisection.
I don't think she says biopsy or vivisection. A
autopsy.
Have you done an autopsy on them, like their bodies? But anyway, wait. Question: who is the Rogue? Is it the lighthouse owner who's?
No, it's fucking Whitby, baby.
What?
It's Whitby?
I 100% think it's Whitby.
Why do you think that?
Because his body was there, desiccated in the thing.
But it wasn't a hallucination?
No, I think what's his face?
No, I don't know.
Oh.
Yeah.
Yeah, this is going to get real weird, guys. Hang in there. But I think there's no guarantee it is Whitby because there's some like timey-wimey stuff, but I think it is Whitby. I think that was Whitby's desiccated body left there with a "Don't
What's
Eat
the
Me" sign.
importance? Oh, why did he leave the "Don't Eat Me" sign?
To make what's his face eat him, because he knew Lowry.
Okay, then my next question is, why is Whitby so important that he's the Rogue?
Because Whitby understood, I think, more so than anyone else. And again, this is please note, anyone watching this is not confirmed. I finished this book and I checked. Nobody has confirmed that it's Whitby, but that's my thing. Whitby's the only person who fully understood Area X.
Yeah.
From the start, I think. Because that fear when he starts asking to be sent away, and then how Area X is able to infect him so far away from it, he becomes a locus point, and then he goes in and we never see him again like the rabbits.
You're right. It has to be Whitby.
It has to be Whitby.
It has to be. He has joined with Area X finally.
And
that would be poetic
sense.
Too.
Remember when they go into the when Control goes into his thing and he's made all those pictures and drawings and he's got like his whole like crazy
Yeah.
madman room, and then we
Mhm.
find the
That
rogues
makes
room hit
Yep.
City Hall, and it's
Right.
got all the things.
It's the same as Whitby's.
Didn't the scene described what Whitby had drawn on the walls,
Yeah.
Yes,
didn't it?
I haven't
And
reread it.
wasn't
but
there an alligator?
Yes, correct.
I'm almost 100% sure there was an alligator. I'm pretty sure it's Whitby, guys.
That would make that would make poetic sense because he really deserved to meld with Area X at that point.
Yeah, and he wanted to. He understood it, the terroir of it, the neat. You can't fight it. It's this thing that is happening, and just that he goes into Area
And
X
the reason why he would try to protect
never
it.
Heard. Yep, and to protect the Virgin, realizing that there was a way for it to change and needing it to become the version that it was in his timeline, and just working against, because he's from Central. They literally said at one point that they think whoever the rogue is had Central training.
Yeah.
So he's from Central. He's familiar with everything.
Yeah.
He knows Lowry.
I think you're right.
Like,
Good job.
I think it's fucking weird.
No, that makes more sense. I forgot.
must be.
I got
Must
Whitby
be.
confused with another character that was with our final character at the end, Lowry. And so when you said Whitby, I was like, what? And then once it connected, I was like, oh my God, that makes so much sense.
Yep. Because and the thing is, he is my boy on the shelf.
He's the
scared
boy
crap
on the
out of
shelf.
control. I'm just saying, Whitby be in places he's not supposed to be,
That makes
Yeah,
sense.
and it's one of those everlasting mysteries from the first trilogy that we just never found out what happened. So
Yeah.
that would be so satisfactory if this is Whitby just making a little sneak appearance, like, hey.
That would, yeah, no, I like that. But
and the idea of him infecting Lowry because he needs Lowry to go back and do the things he does that allows things to happen the way it does. You know, I fucking
This
love my
book
boy.
just, I felt that my mind kind of dissolved the further we went in this book.
oh
Because
my God.
it's like, what is, if the past can influence the future, and if we can move things in the future to make the past reenact itself, then what does it mean?
Yes.
What does it mean? It's terrifying at a certain point, and I think it's one of the best things he does with this. There's going to be points where Vandermeer tries to explain, like, ooh, how did Area X happen? Who was at the cause of it? And I much preferred the idea of it just being this, like, force unleashed that kind of, because there's this idea of, like, who were, there's a character named Jack, and it's like, it's all Jack's fault. But, like, well, we kind of already knew that in the first book.
Yeah.
Or in the first series. And kind of looking at the unfolding of it, and I would say the one thing that I like that he adds is the timey-wimey stuff.
Yeah.
Just
Well, that creates more of the mystery horror to it, because then you're like, okay, wait, hold on a second. I thought we were just like one way. Now we're both ways. And once you introduce that, it becomes very confusing in a good way. But anyway, so basically, going back to the plot, we're introduced to these journal entries. That is the first group of biologists / people that go off to the area, and weird things happen, and they all end up disappearing.
And a lot of them die, so there's some bodies. A lot of people disappear. Was it just running away? Was it alligators? The rabbits. So at first there's just one rabbit, and then en masse. Then there's this point where they try burning the rabbits, and then the rogue appears, that person who's been hanging out at the village bar, and he starts speaking stuff, and he becomes like a flaming person, and he infects all of their minds. And from this point on, the biologists are not okay. Like, they're hanging on by a fucking thread.
And you know what I loved, dudes? You know what made that for me? Because originally, the way the scene's portrayed, it's horrific. It's a line of people burning out rabbits alive, as the rabbits don't even run away, as they eat the
and the rabbits
eat the flesh of their
They
fallen
just keep
brethren.
eating.
Yeah, they're just like, and the smell and the horrific nature of it, and they just keep going, and it's like the people that are burning, the biologists and so on, they just are like, we just have to do it, we just have to do it, we just have to do it. And when the rogue comes along, he's almost like a Jesus figure, where it's like, or Moses figure, where it's like, let my people go. And he's just like, no, leave them alone and such. And I find that fascinating, and I'm actually curious why he cared about the rabbits so much. And maybe you can comment on that in a second. Maybe it's just Area X in general. But what I loved is much, 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 much later on, we get these ramblings from now that I'm assuming Whitby / the Rogue, where it's like, I didn't mean to do that to them. I didn't mean to do it to them. And that regret made it all the more horrific.
And it feels very Whitby.
Yeah.
There was lots of points where Whitby regretted his actions and said sorry.
Yeah. Oh, God. That makes so much sense.
It really does.
Maria's very pleased with herself. Do you see that? Look at her. She's almost rubbing her hands together like an evil.
I'm glad that I could explain it in a way where it clicked for you guys, and it makes sense for you guys, because that means I'm not crazy. I will say that there was a lot of other people were also like, we think it's Whitby, but there was also other guesses that they had about who it was, but I was like,
Whitby makes the most sense.
You know what it also
it makes the most sense.
You know the part where there's the one alligator that survives that was released area
called the Tyrant.
And there's this point where the Tyrant is carrying the Rogue in its jaws, and it's kind of like this, like, not like
flaccid,
stiff as a human body. It's kind of this flaccid, like, squishy
like
material.
It's a skin.
And it reminded me of the way Whitby was described when he was underneath the thing. Like, there was there was this way Control described his face and his skin in that scene, and like how his face had like a loss of like feature a bit to it while he was in that box. And I was like, my God,
turning into a rubber man, kind of.
Exactly. And I was like, oh my God, is that my boy Rubber Man Whitby? and
I just spent this whole book thinking, is it that sea guy?
Yes.
That was the main character in book 2. That was my... And I kind of kept going to, no, it's not. It doesn't fit.
No,
But who else could it be?
It's funny, because at first I thought, is it Control? And I was like, but Control got turned into a
ferret.
white ermine.
Yeah.
Ferret dude. Like, how would it be him? Who would it be? And then when the floppy alligator
thought maybe it was his double, like that Area X had created.
I mean, that would make sense.
So that was kind of my... But it didn't entirely fit. It felt wrong. And then I got kind of stuck because I couldn't even remember his name. I was like, it was Cop or Cap or something weird.
Yeah. And then also, you know what threw me was the walking stick. It's described at the beginning that the Rogue had the walking stick that was positioned against a trail. And I was like, is this the dad of that one? Like, I don't understand who this is. Like, who is this the lighthouse owner?
Nope, it's real confusing. This is the identity of the Rogue, but for me, the minute at the end when Lowry found the Whitby skin suit, I was like,
you know, that creeps me out so much. You know
God.
what it reminds me of? And it's actually one of the scariest scenes in a movie I've ever seen in my life. Like, I don't think... There's very few things, like maybe like one thing, like a core memory from when I was like 7 and too young to watch the Blair Witch Project, and a couple of other films where it like really fucked me up. There's really a scene at the top of this hill of scenes that have fucked me up in my life. And I've watched a lot of horror movies, I feel like. And it's the one with Scarlett Johansson. What's it called? The one where she's an alien lady and she's going around seducing people, and then
Species.
What's that?
Species.
No, not Species. I
I know which one you mean.
No, not so much porn.
She's an experiment.
No, the one. Hold on
porn.
a second. I'm gonna look it up. I have to look it up.
Then I don't know. Sorry.
Johansson body skin. Let me just type that in. Let's see. No, I got.
I don't want to know what.
This is gonna kill me. But for the sake of time, there's this one, and I'll think about it in a second while you guys are talking. But there's this one scene, and basically she's an alien, and she's going around something into the skin or something. I feel like skin is part of the title, and she's going around. She's entrapping men mostly. I don't think there's any women that she entraps. And she leads them into a dark, like, apartment each time. And she,
Under the skin.
under the skin. And she's actually like an alien. And she's meat harvesting people. And there's this one scene, oh my God, it gives me nightmares. Like, I didn't even watch the movie when I came across the scene. I just saw it. And there's this horrific scene where it's the body and it's like trying to show you what it's like when they're harvesting the meat. And the body's like in this water void blackness. And all of a sudden there's this like clap, like, and it gets sucked out. And then the skin's just like this. And it's like paper thin. So it like indicates all the bones and everything have been sucked out. And then you get the meat, like just like a flash to the meat going into a chute. And it's like horrific. It is absolutely horrific. It has left an imprint on my mind. And that is what I am picturing in this. And it's horrific.
It is. It's really horrifying. It's so. Let me. I'm thinking because I think the funnest part about talking about these books is talking about individual instances.
Yeah.
Give me like 3 minutes, ladies, to get through the plot as quickly as I can, and then we can talk about the individual things. So keep in mind the things you want to talk about as I do this.
Okay.
That the Dead Town biologists, a lot of them die. 4 people escape. The Mutter, the Team Leader 1, Team Leader 2, who have a thing with the cameras. The cameras record stuff, but everyone who watches them sees different things. Super creepy. And we find out the cameras are living things. Gross. The rogue is seen shucking the cameras and feeding it to the tyrant, who the rogue has developed like a relationship with. At one point, he's seen walking through the fields with the tyrant next to him. People are dreaming this. They keep having, after they had the initial interaction with the rogue, they keep having crazy dreams, and it's leading them to insanity. The team leaders are found in a hotel,
hiding
with some of the cameras, freaking out about what they've seen. And then the medic escapes. And old Jim, we find out, is an old operative of Central. He used to work with Jack. Jack is a character we knew in the second book. He is the grandfather of Control. And Jack is an old operative who's now like head of Central. Like he's in charge of shit now. And he's like, my old friend Jim, you've had a psychotic break and you're not doing well and you're an alcoholic now, and I'm going to pick you up off of, this is the second story, by the way. Old Jim was the guy who was telling us the first story, but
he was reading through the materials because that's what Jack asked him to do
while he was in rehab, basically. So he's had a bit of a psychotic break. His daughter abandoned him and disappeared, and he's become an alcoholic, and Jack finds him, puts him through this, and is like, I need you to head up an operation for me, buddy. Kind of under the table. Everyone's going to think it's your retirement, but you're going to go to the Forgotten Coast. All those files I made you read about, you're going to go there. You're going to be in charge. You're going to do some stuff for me. And old Jim's like, yeah, that's fine. You kind of helped me get better and stuff like that. And there's this idea the whole time that Jim he's sober, but he's kind of empty as a person.
I think
there's this sense of emptiness.
Isn't the metaphor something about a candle or something?
Am I the flame, the
vessel,
the flame, the candle, or the vessel?
Yes.
Which is something that happened in the third book that we saw repeated from Saul. And then Lowry also uses the same language at one part in his section. So pin in that. But yeah, and he goes and he ends up on the Forgotten Coast and immediately is greeted by a fake version of his daughter. Like, he had a daughter named Cass. She abandoned him a year ago. And then there's this fake version of his daughter.
So
and you as a reader are like,
I was so
you're
angry.
like, what the
I was
fuck?
so confused. I thought she had gone into Area X.
Yeah.
And that's why
Yeah.
you were going to look her.
It was very much so because of the doubles and everything. I thought, oh, did she get conscripted by the Central, and did she go into Area X and this is her double, just like the biologist, and she's coming out?
Yeah,
no, guys, that's not
like,
it.
Don't follow me.
Yeah. No, we never find out what happened to his actual daughter, but they make him a fake daughter. It's fake Cass,
and
everyone.
that's fucked up. Like, Jack is such a piece of garbage for doing that to.
It's also in the 80s. How did they have such good plastic surgery in the 80s?
I think it's just supposed to be somebody that looks like her a lot. That's all.
Oof. It's terrifying. It is a terrifying moment because he has a little baby breakdown and he's super mad, and this girl has to pretend to be his daughter, and there's this point where he dumps all these letters at her feet, and she's like, "Oh fuck!" Like there's this, and it's just and put a pin in them. They're kind of the heart of this story.
Yeah.
But yeah, so he goes there and he's set up to be his cover story is that he owns the village bar and that he's come back to be like to run it and stuff, and his daughter
Is a realtor.
Cass, is a real estate agent who's helping him with some investment properties. And there's a couple of things he's investigating. Number one, the Seance and Science Brigade is set up. This is a group that we learned about in the second and third book. And they're kind of the people that bug for the lighthouse keeper, Poor Saul Weintraub, and fuck with the lighthouse glass, and or partially.
God, I forgot about that.
Fuckface named Henry harass my poor Saul and fuck with the lighthouse, and it's just I hate them so much. But that he's also supposed to find the rogue, despite the fact that it's been 20 years since the whole thing happened with the dead town and all of the biologists. They think the tyrant, that alligator is still alive, that the rogue is still running around causing havoc and just looking for answers. So he's doing investigating.
Shutter, bang, bang.
Yes. Oh God, that was so good. We're not going to explain that. Sorry, guys.
Read it yourself.
Best luck next time. Read it next time. And as he's investigating, he is forced to become closer to Cass because she is also, and this is, when I refer to Cass, it is fake daughter Cass. If I talk about it, if I mention anything about his real daughter, I'll say his daughter, but Cass, fake daughter. She's also an operative working for Central and is supposed to be helping him investigate stuff. And she also knows quite a bit. And she's like fucking capable as hell. I love
Oh
Cass.
my God. Best character in the whole fucking book.
She's such a badass.
Oh, I love her.
And old Jim ends up fucking around with Man-Boy Slim and gets him to connect him with the Mutter. And he also connects with the medic from 20 years ago at the old dead town. He is still alive, rocking around, working for SNSD.
Super creepy. Super creepy. Yeah. Think big, weird. Meaty meat cleaver man. And that's him.
And he keeps saying sir. And let me tell you, when that came back in their second interaction, but he talks to him and he finds out something that he had in his brain was that the whole thing with the alligators was not actually about the alligators at all. It was about
the generator.
No, not even about the generator.
My bad.
Partially the generator. There was a generator there that would give subliminal messages that would fuck with people's brains because Central loves subliminal messaging and fucking with people's brains with brainwashing words. But one of the things they were developing was, can you get people to do menial tasks that they won't remember afterwards? And so what they were actually, the whole point of the alligator thing is to get someone to walk through these alligators with a full tea service of tea and then not have them remember. But it didn't work because one of the alligators ate that person. And all of the other biologists...
That's so wild.
Yeah.
I feel like...
And all of the other...
Go ahead.
All of the other biologists just watched this happen, but then didn't remember because the medic was the one with all the words. And it's just terrifying.
Yeah, no. I kind of feel like Vandermeer had a dream, and that was his dream. Because that's a dream. There are certain scenes that have, like, an extra special dream-like quality in this book in particular. The other ones, it feels more contrived. But there are some, like, random-ass, like, scenes that seem dream logic-y. And I'm like, dude, did you have a dream? Yeah. And you were like, man, I bet you I could fit that into my book.
This whole book is just reality slowly dissolving around you, and you start to doubt everything.
Everything. And especially because this interaction is just a conversation, and he's like, yeah, the full tea service. And you're like, what? That's what... And so he's learning from that. He talks to Man-Boy Slim, who knew the Mutter back in the day, and basically get some information about him, and then talks to the Mutter, who is not doing well and kind of has a bit of a little breaky down. But he learns more from her and the kind of having to do with the cameras and stuff like that, but not actually important. And then one of the things that happens is old Jim asks Jack, the guy who's in charge of all of this, to give him all access to all of the
Files,
records and files for the Deadtown experiment, and it gets put in this giant weird metal silo thing, and it's all of their...
What I'm picturing is basically a boathouse. So if you've ever seen a Floridian boathouse / just a boathouse by a lake where it's an aluminum silo, basically. It's just like an aluminum house made for storage, like a giant storage shed. That's what I was picturing. So when I was like picturing the scene, I was thinking, oh, the hot, humid air inside. I've been inside those things, and the spiders make their homes in the corners. And so like it's because it's mostly nature bound. It's not like it's just something you leave things in and you come back, and when you need them you use them, and like a boat. And so, like, I just, like, they have all of the pickled preserves. I say pickled. But what I mean is, like, all of the original specimens that they put into jars and stuff from the original escapade into the Forgotten Coast. And they're all there. And they end up retrieving a bobber for the... Was it for the...
From one of the alligators.
Yeah.
It was one of the ones that had been on them. But the important thing that happens with this scene is mainly he's beginning to bond more with Cass, fake daughter. And the thing that we discover as this is happening, because he's going to have there's a lot of little interactions, but the important thing is you discovered that old Jim has been mentally fucked with by Jack and by Central.
That made me so angry.
To do things for them in like he's kind of like a fail-safe backup system as they're doing stuff, because Jack is doing some weird shit.
Fuck Jack.
Put in Henry and Suzanne, who aren't part of Central, aren't associated with anything as in the SNSB, and they're fucking around with shit. And as we know from the third book, they fuck around too hard. And then he also has there's a part where there's a guy stuffing people into barrels.
Oh my gosh.
I'm not going to go into it. Read the book.
That was so creepy. Yeah, there's just like, dude, really, seriously, I liked and disliked that part so much. I liked it because the way it described, the guy was like breaking their bones into the right position to shove them into the barrel, which is so good. Like visually, like,
and he's talking to them.
Yes.
Get into the barrel.
However, that being said, what a rando character to have.
Commander Thistle, baby.
A huge red herring.
Read the book. But the important part of that scene is that old Jim is supposed to be asleep and supposed to be able to be hypnotized, but he's not, because he had a run-in with the Rogue. He was out doing stuff one day after a performance, and he went outside to get some fresh air, and then the Rogue was there, and the Rogue started saying things, and there's multiple stories, including that fantastic one with that other lady, the psychic, and the house centipede.
Oh my god, that was so creepy.
Yeah. Terrifying.
Guys, there's a lot of side things. It's just like, it's not worth giving you, at that point, just go read the book.
Read the book.
We can afterwards, because there's a lot of little things I want to talk about in detail. I'm just trying to
get through the major bit. Yes, go ahead. Go ahead.
But the Rogue talks to Jim, fucks Jim up, and kind of breaks him. And Jim starts saying things back, and he's like, I don't know these words. I don't know these things that I'm saying. Also, Jim is obsessed with a particular piece of music that he keeps playing all the time. But afterwards, after he meets with the Rogue, his mind is more his own. And what you discover is, as I mentioned, his mind has been fucked with by Jack and Central to make him a tool. And he's been programmed. And the song that he's been obsessed with this whole time. And you're just like, wow, he's a real classical music lover.
Me too.
And it's like, no, that song was part of his mind washing.
His conditioning.
Yeah, his conditioning. And the Rogue broke him of it. But as the Rogue was harassing him and he was harassing the Rogue, like they're kind of talking at each other in harmful ways, Cass comes out and shoots the Rogue, who ends up plopping into the water. And they're like, oh shit, what happened? But anyway, that's why when we're with the weird guy who's stuffing people into barrels, old Jim wakes up and he's like, you're not supposed to be awake. I'm supposed to be able to control you. And old Jim's like, the Rogue freed me, guys.
Thanks, bruh.
Yeah. And so then Cass and him go into Deadtown, and they're looking through stuff, and they're like, wow, why does it look like there was an alligator on the second floor? How did an alligator get up onto the second floor? And they're looking at stuff, and then old Jim has a bit of a freak out, and she takes him back, and she's like, wow, they really fuck with your mind. And then they take Cass away, and old Jim's like, no, I lost my daughter again. And Jackie's like, things aren't going the way we want them.
Jack's daughter, Jackie.
Jackie, mother of control. But she's like, it's not going the way they want to. You better get us some information. And he ends up getting a note from Cass that someone at the bar gives him, and is like, go feed her turtles.
Frogs.
And he goes and he finds
go feed my frogs.
Frogs. Go feed her frogs. And he ends up discovering that she knew way more about the situation than he gave her credit for. But she also found a secret room in the city hall of Deadtown, and a bunch of other stuff happens. But when he goes to the city hall and he goes to the secret room, he sees his name written on the wall, all of these notes, things about Gloria and all of the people in the town. You don't know who Gloria is. Don't worry about it. We know who Gloria is.
Yeah, we know who Gloria is.
And then he sees in the corner there'd been like a weird wet mark, like
a mold.
Something had been wet.
He described it as literally like, what is it? A watermark. It was like a watermark.
A watermark. Yeah. But then he turns around and there's actual water in it, and alligators the tyrant's like, hello, we're on the third floor.
Weird.
It's so weird. And then it just grabs him and takes him into the water, but gently, like
a mother
not crushing
taking
him,
his son into her bosom.
And
carrying her little cub.
Oh, also, there was a point where they saw a chair. I don't know if you guys caught it, but they saw a chair that had gold dust on it. We know. We're familiar with the gold dust. They didn't touch it. But anyway, he gets taken into the water, and he's taken into like kind of this lagoon pond thing, and floating in the water is the rogue, and the rogue and the tyrant kind of like meld together. And old Jim's like, please just release me. This is hell. I would like the peace that he has. And the tyrant's like, no. And she roars at him, and in the roar, he's given knowledge, and also she spews out shit at him.
Yeah.
Like, I think it's more of the gold dust. And he understands that the rogue came from the future and is trying to... everything he's done here has been for a specific purpose, and that he's been trying to keep things from happening worse and to maintain a timeline and everything. And old Jim's like, wow, that's crazy. And then he goes to the bar and he starts playing music on the piano. And you, as a reader, are like, oh my God, this is the day when Saul went into the bar and that weird music was playing, and there was that crazy guy at the thing playing the music, and that, because in that scene, and this is in the third book, it's such a it's almost like Euclidean in the sense of unease that it gives you in the scene in the third book, and you're like, oh my God, old Jim was the man at the keyboard. Like, it's just this mwah. And then it ends. That's it. The world, and you're like, oh my God, Area
And
X.
then next thing we get is fuck.
Welcome to the Lowry portion. Lowry's an asshat.
Lowry's just a horny college frat boy, surfer bro, who really just wants to get married to Sky and live a happy, drug-filled life.
Yeah, it's like he has this lower level of his personality that is really sweet and really neurotic and super hyper aware that he's kind of, sappy. So he's like taking a whole bunch of drugs just to get away from himself. And then he ends up doing really weird shit. And then he needs more drugs to forget about that.
The weird shit. And it's crazy because their Area X has come down. This is a year after the border comes down, and he is the narration. You really just have to read it.
You do.
/ listen to it to understand the amount of fucks given to you as a reader,
and then the lack thereof of fucks once the drugs wear off, which really hit you over the head, and in a weird way, like he did it on purpose. When you were giving
the recap, Maria, when you were giving the recap, suddenly I understood why the mother was so weird on the phone. Because she kept saying, fuck you, to Jim as well.
Oh, man.
Because at the time, I thought that is she a fake double?
That's what I thought,
the mother
too.
never make it out of Area X? But it's the drugs.
Yeah.
Yes.
For sure.
It's the drug.
That makes sense too with the choice she makes. It's because she tries to fake her suicide, like on the phone with Jim, and Jim's just like, "Bruh, like you didn't get me on that," and she's like, "Fuck you!" And then she just like, yeah, no, that was actually really creepy. The way, so guys, as much as I want to own a physical copy of these books, I have to admit the audiobook is fucking stellar,
incredible. The narrator is
sublime,
fantastic.
Yeah,
highly recommend it. And
I own both the physical copy and the audiobook copy, and I love reading the physical copies because I think the prose is just so smart and so beautiful and so unexpected, and it's easier for me to parse what is actually happening in the book when I read it with my eyes, because when you're listening, it's a fever dream. I tell you, it's like what is happening?
It is a fever dream.
Why now?
That's why I listened and read it at the same time.
See, I've only ever listened to it. And so it does constantly feel like a fever dream. But I feel like I already, because when I re-listened to the first book at one point at just normal speed instead of 1.7 times speed, I was like, oh, I think I know what kind of experience I would have had if I read this.
Yeah.
I saw... I forget what it's called, but there's a company that sells special edition of books specifically. They're not the only ones, but like to sell these editions. But one came out for the Southern Reach, and I was like so angry I didn't buy it because it's so cool, guys. It's made out of different animal skins.
Really pretty.
Yeah. And it's made out of different animal skins.
They have one for Game of Thrones as well.
Yes, and anyway, I'm really upset I didn't buy it because right now they're like $500, and I'm like, it's not gonna happen.
But yeah, I had it on my Kindle because I own the physical copy of the first three, but I don't have the physical one for this one. But I read it on my Kindle and listened to it at the same time, which was perfect because I got all of the nuances. Because the fucks and the different way he says fuck, like you don't get that in the reading experience. But there are other times where he does some wordplay where he uses two words that sound the same. I know. And you don't realize it as much when you're listening.
It's really hard.
And so listening and reading at the same time, if you have the patience to do it, I would highly recommend. It is a joy of an experience.
I'll be right back. Continue.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. So we have Lowry. He's getting prepped for the day he has to go into Area X. He's on a lot of drugs. We learn about the different members of his team that he's going in with. When they go in, immediately things start going wrong. They're in these weird giant suits that have multiple layers on to protect them through the tunnel. And one of the things we see in the later books is that people no longer remember because of psychic conditioning put upon them. They don't remember what happened when they crossed over. They just wake up on the other side. But these guys have the experience. And by the time he comes out the other side, he's sober. Someone suffocates. Their skin suit melds to their skin, suffocates, and they all watch him die. And then Lowry's like, "Take off the suits," and he's just naked, standing around. Let me tell you, you've never met someone who's so sure he has a big dick.
Yeah, he's like, I was just standing there, and my dick was dragging the ground. I was like, dude.
That's not, nobody wants that, Mike. That doesn't sound fun.
That does not sound good, my guy.
Does not.
And he's so convinced that everyone wants to jump on his huge dick as well. It's actually hilarious.
The whole time. But yeah, so you kind of watch this fall apart, and there's also a scene in the second book where you watch what is like a weird demented party, like where the people on the expedition were like drinking and having a party, but like weird shit was happening, specifically with Lowry. And you get that scene, but from what was happening on the ground. And Lowry, like, he thought he was fighting like a skin wall of Area X. And then when they look at it, he's like humping it. And it's just, it's weird and unsettling. And you don't like Lowry, but you also like Lowry because underneath his annoying ass outer self, there's this like guy who just proposed to a girl before they went in to die, and she hasn't given him an answer, and she won't give him an answer.
And he's struggling so hard to cope, and you can just see how everything he does now is kind of, he's so posturing, like if Area X is coming up to eat them, he's gonna fight that bitch. He's
Yep.
like, I bit the fucking chunk out of it, and I swung my huge dick around,
And it's just like, it's off-putting and unsettling, but things kind of like fall apart. Some people go off to investigate the village, and then other people, like people just start disappearing. Sky starts having a hard time. It's not going well. The walkie-talkies, because we heard that they couldn't take electronics in with them because electronics started doing weird, because the walkie-talkies start hearing things that either haven't happened or have happened in the past. But how are the walkie-talkies doing that? So they bury the walkie-talkies, they throw all of them in a box in the pond, and then it appears in the middle of camp the next day, and they're all like, what the fuck? And like things just go from bad to worse. And I'm gonna go through some of it, like just glaze over it. But basically there's this point where it's just Lowry, this guy whose name I've forgotten, and Sky, the woman that he proposed to, who's kind of been ignoring him this whole time. And who's just like, you're going crazy, Lowry. Like, you gotta get your shit together. But they decide that they want to go to this destroyer off the coast. And they're also on a beach of bones. And he's like, please don't go to the destroyer. Why would you go to the destroyer? Don't go do that. But they go off, and he's like, oh, fuck, they're gone. And he has been given a special task by Jack. Everyone else had their mission, but Jack told Lowry that his job was to find the money in the barrels that old Jim stole, and to find old Jim and what happened to him. So he's going off to try do that. Else that happened here? Oh, Landry kind of died. He doesn't have the drugs anymore. Oh God, no! There was something else I wanted. Oh no, he's been obsessed with calories this whole time. Our boy has not been happy with the hardtack and protein bars that they've been sent on this mission with. He's been obsessed. Like, what? Look, there's a rabbit. Can I eat there's
literally
I could eat that.
I think a solid 3-minute rant on how he's just like, there's so many animals to eat. Why are we not eating the animals? Oh, right. That's right. Central probably dissuaded us from contaminating ourselves. But did we talk about the fact that he just got naked in front of all of them and said his dick was as long as the floor?
Yeah.
Yep. Yeah, we did. We did. Don't you
It's very hard to glaze over that part.
Fucking Lowry, what an asshole. But yeah, so he ends up by himself, and he goes to Dead Town, and he goes into like the room, and he sees, like, in the room, he sees his name, he sees more notes from the rogue and stuff, who we know by this point is dead, because the rogue died at like the day Area X exploded onto the scene. But then in the corner, he sees what looks like a bunch of folded fabric. And then when he looks at it, he pulls it apart a little bit, and he realizes, no, this is desiccated skin.
Oh,
this is a huge ass human skin suit.
Guys, when he describes the smell of it, it's so delicious. Oh my God. He's like, it smells like a chicken broth in a chicken soup. It smells.
And the bubble.
Oh, and the fat. And like how him and his sisters would be arguing. And then on Thanksgiving Day, they'd go run in and they'd smell the braised skin of the turkey and the mouth water. Oh my God. It made me it made my mouth water. And I was like, oh yeah, I'd eat human skin at that point.
Yeah. So at first he's disgusted. He's like, ugh, what is this? And then because there's a sign on it. The best part is there's a sign on this skin suit, desiccated skin suit, that says, do not eat me. And he was like, well, of course I'm not going to eat it. And then he's like,
how did Whitby know?
But should I?
But how did Whitby know somebody would want to eat him?
I don't think
I think Whitby knew that they were going to be conditioned not to eat things in Area X, so they would be hungry.
Oh, so like, wait, so what's it on? So wait, my question is it a reverse psychology thing, or is it a?
Well, also remember, this Whitby is the Whitby from the future of this, because remember, Whitby, when he goes back in time, it is 20 years past this point.
Yeah.
This
Whitby knew what happened.
Whitby knows
during the
Lowry
first
comes back
expedition.
alive.
Yeah. So he knows he can kind of do a little like inoculation of himself into Lowry.
Yes.
Oh, okay, I see.
And
Ah.
infect him and make sure
Yeah.
that Lowry does things that enable things to unfold the way that they need to. Again, speculation. Unconfirmed, but I think it's a fucking solid theory. But anyway, so there's a sign that says do not eat, and immediately our boy's like, if it says do not eat, then maybe I should eat it. Like, but it says not to. I wouldn't eat it, but maybe I would eat it.
And then
all
it
of a sudden
smells
it
so
starts to
goddamn
smell.
good. And you know what my favorite part is when he pulls the head towards him.
Because he starts eating it.
Yes, he eats the foot first. He pulls the foot to him. He eats the foot. He eats the skin, and then he eats the ribs, and the ribs come up. And then he goes for the face, and then he drops the face, and he's just like, "Oh my god, how horrible!" And then the smell.
Because it's Whitby.
Yes.
And he knows who Whitby is.
Yes, and it smells so good that I can't forget the description of him peeling off the nose with his teeth.
Biting into the cartilage of
Oh, that sounds so
Ugh.
good.
It is such good body horror because he really plays with your senses there. You can just sense how delicious and irresistible it is. And it just clashes so hard with what is actually happening. You're like, oh, this is horrific.
Yeah, but
It's almost pornographic.
it is.
It
It
is.
is.
It's whatever that thing is, that term for that one type of stuff that you see all the time. What
Vor.
is that? Vor.
Yeah.
It's vor.
No.
It
But
feels
you
like.
are right. It's like when I talk about or when I learned about pornography in my horror class, not pornography in the sense that porn is sexually related, but pornography is in the not the exposition, the what's the term I'm looking for? The over
The purpose of it.
yeah, like to give you an hyperbole of what is, and that is pornography, and that's what pornography is. It's not specifically sexually related, although that is what we term it to, because that is the common term, but it is a hyperbole of the senses. It is like an over exaggeration.
It's an evocation of an
Gratuitous.
emotional response.
Gratuitous.
Yes. And so, and we discussed that in my horror film class about blood and gore and stuff like that. And that's like horror. What's the term? I'm like blanking on it. It's not horror pornography. It's, I just can't think of
That
it.
is a thing.
Yeah, it is. There's a term for it though. And I'm just like blanking on it. And so,
Yeah.
like, for example, Flower of Flesh and Blood by the Guinea Pig series in Japan, like the over expose of the body being cut into and the gore and the sinew and the bone. And so all of that stuff is what gives to the pornography or the pornographic nature of this. And this is definitely one of those scenes, and it's so good.
Yes. It's crazy good, and just the different, because it's an entire Thanksgiving meal. It ends with pie,
yeah.
like as he's experiencing it, and it is only at the end when he's eaten everything that he's fully sated, and he goes up to the roof and he's like, oh man, wow. And then a different person from the
which is the one I got confused
expedition.
with Whitby.
Yeah.
It's the one I
Yeah,
got
no,
confused. His name is Jamal. That's all I remember.
Yeah. A different guy comes, and he saw this guy get on the boat with Sky to go to the destroyer.
Also,
the
fuck
little rowboat.
Sky for abandoning him. I mean, he was kind of weird, but also, like,
He was so weird.
he was so weird. I can't blame her, but
Is he the one who told Lowry about the chicken?
Whitby was the one who told Lowry about the chicken.
Was he? Because he was fucking weird as well.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, Whitby, again, Whitby's weird. Whitby's real fucking weird.
No,
Whitby,
Jamal, I just remember his first name. Because I remember as soon as I heard it, I thought of my Jamal. And so
Yeah.
I was thinking, like, okay, that's a name I can anchor to a little bit. He's the guy that's actually like the stone in the river that's keeping like an anchor point. And he's kind of like, yeah, we need to continue on. Like, that's the kind of vibe he gave off anyway. He was just like, yeah, I'm not going crazy just yet. And so that's why Sky went with him, I'm assuming. It's because he still had the mission in mind, or like some crazy version of the mission, I guess. And so, like, that's who I got confused with. Anyway, continue.
Yeah, but he appears at the top, and they're talking, and he kind of makes a comment about that Lowry has a bunch of scales that look like eyes all over him. He's also breathing out white gold dust, and he's having this like suddenly he's filled with knowledge about Area X. And anyway, he throws that guy off the roof,
and he dies.
And then he goes, and he goes about his way, and he's doing things, and he's trying to like get to stuff before he forgets everything, because he's like, I've got all of this knowledge in me, I can use this, I can be the hero. And he goes to the village bar, because again, he's looking for old Jim. And he goes to the village bar, and he sees the piano, and the piano has all of these letters spilling out of it, and he goes to look at them, and then Hargraves. And Hargraves is someone I haven't mentioned, but she's someone who is on the mission that's been mentioned a few times prior to this point, but she comes in, and she's like, oh, Lowry, you survived. And he's like, how the fuck did you survive? She's like, I do better here than I do out of here. And then she's like, I see you found old Jim's letters. Fuck y'all. And then you're immediately like, oh my God, is this? And she starts talking about old Jim, and she knows him and how she found him, and he was dead with his hand, that the night it all happened, he was changed by Area X and used as like another focal point for shit to happen. And he died outside on the bridge, his hand cut off, cowering. And she wasn't there, and you're like, oh my God, it's Cass. And it is Cass, and she's like, fuck you, Lowry, because he's like, Jack sent me, I'm Jack's backup. And she's like, you think you're Jack's only backup? And she's like, but I'm not doing that shit anymore. She shoots him, and then he's just walking away, like it kind of skips a little bit, and he's just walking, and he's got like a hole in his face, a hole in his side, and he's like, oh man, the drugs are beginning to wear off. And then he finds Landry, the guy who
gave him the drugs,
gives him drugs normally. And Landry's real fucking weird, and he kind of goes away from him. And there's a point where he's like, I just got to get to the extraction. Goes to the extraction point, and there's a suit. The suits all disappeared. The suits that they
and also
they were all gone.
Note point is that Lowry was terrified of the suits. The suits, he thought it was like, he even compared it to that one kink that people have, where they get skin, like they...
gimp suit.
Yeah. No, not even a gimp suit. He calls it the other term. It's where people get sucked into a vacuum, and, not sucked in, excuse me. There's, like, pieces of, like, rubber or plastic or whatever, and you have like a mouth breathing piece, and sometimes you don't, and those are for people that are like way too extreme.
Suck out all the air.
Yeah, and that's like what gets you off. I forget what it's called, but he literally calls it that, and he's like, I hate it, I hate it, I hate it, I don't like. That was one of the biggest focal points at the beginning of his introduction, was that he was
why
terrified.
He took all the drugs to kind of cope with the experience of having to be in this suit.
Yes.
But there's a suit sitting there, and it's like, hey, and he's like, oh, hey, suit, I'd like to get across. And the suit's like, just get in me, buddy. And he's like, did anyone else come here? And the suit's like, Hargraves came through, which is incredible, because you're like, oh my God, Cass survived. She went back out. He's not the lone survivor of this. Where is Cass? But anyway, and they're just having this conversation, and the suit's just like, get in me, bud. And he's like, okay, suit. And then it ends, and that's it. And we know Lowry goes off and ends up running by 20 years later when the rest of the book series happens. He's the guy in charge. He's the megalodon on the phone who never went back into Area X and who's been like kind of crazy on the sidelines. And it is a weird story.
That laugh, that maddening giggle.
I need to reread all of these books and just tie together all of these impressions in my mind into something that makes sense again, because this book is like, what?
And I want people to keep
just
track
happened to me
of the fact that she just said, I need to reread these books. That's how good they are. It's like, even though this is like kind of crazy and kind of all over the place, and you're like, wow, did I really need this fourth book? Regardless, it's so well written that you're just kind of like, you know, maybe I'll have a better time on the second, third, fourth, fifth time round, depending on how many times you've read the trilogy.
I will. I had such a better experience the second time reading Annihilation, because I started seeing all the little strings that I missed the first time. The patterns and how it all ties back together, because Jeff Vandermeer is that type of guy who will weave 1,000 little clues into his narrative, but he will never take a break and stop and just say, "Hey, reader, look at this. This is what's happening." He'll just gloss by it, and if you catch it, you'll be like, "Ooh." And if you don't, you'll probably just be really confused.
But he does it so skillfully, though. Like, it's not like some of the things we've read where we're like, guys, there's no, or guys, guy/gal, you did not provide the foundation for that or something like that. There's plenty of strings to bring you back to the core concept of what's happening here.
These books were made to be reread at least twice.
And honestly, after this book came out, I'm like, I need to reread the whole
Yeah, I know, me too.
just straight through and get to this, because I think this fourth book is going to make so much more sense. Number
Agreed.
one, I guarantee, because one of the things he does is he puts things here that is going to make stuff that happened in the first three books
make more sense
retroactively.
Yeah.
And it's crazy because, and it's honestly, I'm so glad I was able to talk to you guys about it, because I like this book more now that we've talked about it than I did before the dreams. Because like I finished
it because I'm piecing together the point of it now. Yeah. I'm like, yes,
I am too, and
come together.
It's him having. You know what I think is the biggest. I think this is the biggest reason why all these books work. This is him having fun. He is having fun telling the story, and I think sometimes, whether it's a story like the wings of Serpent and the Wings of Night, where somebody's having too much fun and not enough structure, and then when you have other books like I mean, I don't want to say House of Leaves because I don't really want to say that, but when you have other books where it's like
it needs a little fun
in it, and this book I think has the series
A Dance with Dragons.
Of books. Which one?
A Dance with Dragons, the last in the last published in The Song of Ice and Fire, where you can just tell that the author is like, I have this whole massive story and now I have to fill it in, and it's so messy and there's so much,
and there's no fun, there's no love, there's no passion, there's no
the love is gone.
Yeah, like there's no big badass moments, like however you want to define that. That doesn't have to be a hero sliding in with guns blazing. It can also just be a man eating another man and it bringing in context.
But one of the other things about it is the level of detail Vandermeer puts into the ecology of Area X and the people. The term that Whitby uses in the second book, terroir, which is when you're making wine, the soil, the weather, the water levels, the bugs,
everything. That's writing, baby.
Yeah. Everything that goes into that creates the product. And he talks about that the only way to understand Area X is to talk about the terroir. And this book is the terroir of Area X. What made Area X? Or I think it's attempting
delicious
to
thesis.
Because it's trying to give you the people that created it, the landscape it was created in, the feelings behind it. And we got a little bit of that with Saul Weintraub in the last book, but like this is the other pieces you need, because Area X in this metaphor is a bottle of wine, and this is everything that made it what it is. And it works so beautifully as
yes.
And honestly, talking with you ladies about it, I've enjoyed it so much more.
I know. I would agree fully. It's because I couldn't say I disliked it. That's the one thing, is when I came into this, I thought, what am I going to say when they ask if I liked it? It's because 75% of me is like, I loved it. And of course I loved it. It was so good. And then the other percentage, if I'm doing the math right, 15% of me, was like, but why the split perspective when we got it? Why did we, like, it's so weird how we end on old Jim and then begin with what's his face.
It's such a weird shift in the narrative.
And you're like,
where is this going? And for me, since it's been so long since I read the first 3 books, it took me a long while to connect that, oh, it's that Landry.
Yes.
And it's this
Yeah.
expedition.
Yep.
It would have been so much more satisfactory if I had read the books back to back.
Yep. It also, for me, I just took a long time to get back into the flow. And
Yeah.
because I kept being like, did I miss this? Did I miss
Yes.
this? Is this a thing I'm missing?
Yes.
At the start? And it took me about halfway through the book to be like, okay, I'm back. I'm in.
Yeah.
I've got it.
Yeah. So, so if you are somebody who has read the 3 books already and in like, oh, well, this is quite a, what a spoiler, appointed time to say
To
this.
start.
But if you have read the 3rd book and now read the 4th book and you're like, wow, like, I don't know how to feel about it, go read the other 3 and I bet you it'll feel like a masterpiece, because I swear to God, Vandermeer just is like really good at this world he's created, at this and I can't imagine him doing a 5th book, but at the same time I'm like, there's so much also unexplored, so like maybe
He
will.
could.
Yeah.
I bet
He
he's going to do
could.
it
He
about
totally
Cass.
could.
About Cass.
Yeah,
Karen
that is the
Hargrave,
obvious next kind of chapter.
because she got out.
Yeah.
The suit told us she got out. And you're like, what happened to Karen, guys? Where did she go after all of this?
Yeah,
But-
and at this point, she's kind of the person who has seen the most behind the scenes
Yeah.
of what this company is up to. So she has a story to tell. It's like,
You know, I don't usually like sorry, my dog's barking. I don't usually like super spy stories overly much, because they become saturated, in media, and between like, Mission Impossible and Spy
and there's
Kids.
just so many
Yeah.
dumb tropes that you're like, that
Yes.
is not how it works in reality. And there's so much stuff that is thrown in there because people think it's cool, and you're like, this is just disingenuous.
Yes, exactly. I think, actually, funnily enough, one of the few spy films I've ever loved is Skyfall, which is so weird, because, like, out of all the MI6 movies, Skyfall is, like, I feel like the most bombastic as far as a film goes, but, like, I really liked it, and I really liked the tone of it. Funnily enough, these books where you get the super spy agency stuff, which is a lot in this book, it fits right into a good vibe. And so if you also like spy novels, this is a weird time to say this, but if you like spy novels and spy things, this series is also really, I feel like, on the top notch.
The series is so good at giving you that spy experience where the spy is just an operative in a great machinery, and
Yeah.
they just get their little imperative, their little mission to do, and the bigger picture is just something that is always a bit obscure.
Oh, what a
And you're
beautiful
never
description.
fully sure
Yes.
what's happening, because nobody ever has the full information. The other thing that I think within all of that that he just does so well is the small moments of humanity with the people, and the moment, because he makes you care about these tiny cogs in the machine. The moment where we find out that old Jim, his wife didn't die in a car
I
crash,
know.
and they actually had been married, and they messed with his mind so much that he completely forgot
Well, you know what I think
huge
does it?
chunk of who he was just
But it's the way Vandermeer does it.
Heartbreaking.
The thing is he gives us a long, winding road of narrative, not in a bad way, but a long, winding road of very beautiful narrative of how old Jim sees his wife, of how, it's somebody that could have been, but wasn't quite. And that kind of like almost chance is very wistful in nature. And so by creating that wistful tone in what could have been in a happiness, and then only to be told later on, yeah, no, actually that was it, you had it, you lost it, and then they lied to you and said that you didn't have it. That's truly heartbreaking. Like, that is actually, I feel like Vandermeer knows what is considered heartbreak and what is not heartbreak. I feel like he understands the machinations of the human spirit, of what really makes you tick as far as love and loss goes. And I think that's what makes this series work so well, is that he already knows that. And so he's able to mold around that because I feel like all these books have to do love, loss, and evolution. And it's because with the loss of the thing that you loved comes an evolved form of yourself and then a new story. It's like the thing I'm always scared about. I'm always scared of the end. I hate the end of The Lord of the Rings because I hate that they go off to a new land and a new story begins. I hate the end of the adventure. And I think that's what he's able to key into is this is the end of the adventure, but there's something new and more beautiful that can be happening. But I'm not going to tell you what that is because then that would ruin it.
Yeah, it is ever amorphous.
Yeah.
It is. And just the way how he slipped that in it as a sideline that Lowry gives to us in Lowry's part where we learn about that for old Jim. It just, but I think you both have just hit a lot of the stuff on the head for me that is really kind of brought this whole thing together. So I'd like to propose, ladies, that at some point we read all 4 of them and we do another video.
I would like that, actually, because I think we could have a better understanding and better commentary on it. Wouldn't you agree?
Yeah. We can talk about how all these little strings tie together and we can make a beautiful braid.
Oh,
Because
I love
this,
it.
if you look at this story arc, we start at the end and we are working our way back. And only now is it becoming a picture. So I just want to see it all again.
All together. I really would like to, so we have to make William put it on the calendar. William, when you watch this,
we have made an executive decision by force majeure.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, indeed.
From smallest boobies on this side to what I'm assuming are largest on the other. There you go.
Oh yeah, way. No, they're definitely
it's that way. To speak will speak. You have to
work the schedule so that we have off weeks so that we have time to read the other ones, please. But yeah, that's what I'd like to do because I think this series needs that. I think that our discussion of this book will only truly hit the heights it can go to with that recontextualization of the whole series.
Just
some note taking
to you guys right now has helped me start to process this book. And I know I need more time for it to mature in my brain so I can digest it into something that makes sense.
To pickle or ferment in your brain.
Yeah.
Sorry, I was just watching a video on the differences between pickling and fermentation yesterday. So
you've mentioned it like 3 times.
I know.
We are going to talk about this book more and even though this video is going to do terribly, if you made it this far, hashtag I'm with the tyrant.
No, just hashtag. I can't say hashtag fuck.
Honestly, hashtag I'm with Jim.
Oh yeah,
yes,
hashtag I'm with Jim.
I'm with Jim. Just write down in the comments, guys. So when people look at the comments, they're like, "The fuck is happening?"
Who's Jim?
And then maybe they'll get here and they'll understand one day. But then this is not the end. As with Jeff Vandermeer's when he finished the 3rd book, and we didn't know this, but this is not the end. We're going to talk about this again because I really want to.
Well,
this has been a pleasure.
I think it deserves it.
I love how this is kind of the story of humanity meeting inexorable change and kind of floundering to come to grips with it. And just it's almost like a process of grieving. How first you're denying it, and they're trying to turn it off, and they're trying to turn back time. And it is just inexorable. It's coming. It's going to happen. And some people we see be brave and embrace it and go into it and embrace the future that is maybe inexplicable to the single human organism. But life goes on.
You're completely correct. And it reminds me of a conversation I had with a friend of mine. Shout out Steven, even though you don't watch our videos. One day we had a conversation where he's scared of evolution in the sense where
he would say
the
that.
idea
my God.
That one day there is going to be whatever humans evolve into that will not recognize us, and we would not recognize it in this way where we're going to be this like archaic piece of the past, and there's going to just be this thing that continues on that is so far removed that it doesn't even feel. And that is what this book is grappling with, that fear of change, of evolution on a... And you say what you're going to say.
All I want to say is, can I just say that is so Stephen? Because while he's grappling with that large, huge evolutionary concept, I'm grappling with the fact that in 10 years I'm going to be a different person, and that I'm going to look back on this person.
That's also what this...
No, but he's
that's also what this book
way
is dealing
too big.
with.
He's thinking way too big. I'm just thinking...
I'm going to be dead, bro.
I'm just thinking of the fact that looking back at my 22-year-old self, I'm like, oh, I'm a different person now. And I don't know if I'm okay with the person I've become, because I think the person who I was very passionate and very, like, wholeheartedly, like, genuine. And while I wouldn't say that's necessarily different from now, I'm definitely more pickled, if you would. I'm saltier. And as I grow older and older, I'll become salty and saltier. And just to depress everybody, my grandfather texted me yesterday, and he was like, I lost a tooth today. And he was like, you have to understand, my grandfather's 85. He's like, I lost a tooth today. Soon I'll only be eating mushed materials instead of steak and French fries. And I was like, I started crying a lot. And I was like,
as one would,
because like that's my fear, is growing old and not being able to do the things I loved. And then this morning he texted me and he said, I had nightmares all night. I didn't sleep well. I had nightmares of losing all my teeth. And I'm just like, that's me now. Like,
yeah, I have those nightmares too.
Yeah. And I'm just like, bro, like, and he just doesn't want to get old. That's my grandfather's biggest fear, is getting old, and he's just getting old. And I'm just like, you can't help with this inexorable force but get old with time.
That's the book.
And
that's the book.
I hate it.
That's the grief of life.
I hate it.
And the grief of every character who ends up going into Area X and ends up changed.
I'm definitely the people who didn't change with Grace.
And because that's one of the things the third book talks about, is the people who like accept it, the people who didn't delay it. So like, remember in the first book, the biologist sees an alligator with human eyes.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And then the biologist kept herself from changing. She fought so hard, so she ended up turning into a weird, crazy Leviathan. And the idea of just letting the change happen is an easier thing. And the movie, one of the things the movie did well that I think grasps this a little bit is, and the movie was dealing with a different metaphor, which was the idea of like, how does trauma change you? But there was that one character who kind of accepted her state, accepted the world around her, the plant lady, and she had this like, she like blossomed into this thing. And I think at the heart of this, even though that was, I think you could argue that's more about trauma, because each of the people on that mission had a lot of trauma.
Yeah.
This is about like, you know, if you just let the change happen, like Control ended up as a happy little ermine, you know?
Yeah.
And the fighting of it, but also how the people that fought the hardest are the ones that end up having a split of themselves.
Yeah, it's more of a desiccation of their true being.
Mm.
Yeah, but they also like, those are the people with... Yeah, but those are the people that also have copies of themselves, you know? That go out, because if we think about Control didn't have a copy, he just turned into a happy little ermine. And there's something there. There's something like there's something there to sink into about accepting the change that's happening,
a death of self,
and fighting against it so much that you lose the ability. Because like the ermine and the alligator are enjoying life. Yeah. And they're just vibing.
Yeah, and their stories are so optimistic in that, because the last thing we get from Control is that he begins to understand how this is changing him, but he is changing it. And they are melding and becoming something
symphony
together.
Yeah.
Yeah. I got chills.
I know. So did I. And you're completely right. Versus the biologist just fought so hard not to change that she ended up being so changed. Like,
and it becomes this split of personality where it's the monster existing on, and then the double that is kind of like a pale shadow of the person that was before, that is
When you
still
try to
walking
go
around
on.
in the human world.
When you try to go on past the time, what is your time? You become a ghost or a monster, as opposed to something part of Earth itself.
Yeah, but you also don't enjoy again, that alligator and that ermine, they're just out there vibing,
Again, it's
living,
like,
and they're still living.
it's Buddha
Yeah, they're
versus
alive.
like, it's like a Buddhist almost vibe versus like a hell versus heaven like vibe, I guess, where there's like punishment for not wanting to be part of what is. I don't know. That's like that's a
100%.
mixed metaphor because I don't know religion well enough, but that's what I'm like associating with is the punishment.
In a sense,
of
Area X is
death.
kind of like hell come to Earth.
Yeah.
And one of the things that I will say with Buddhism is that there's this idea that like this is it.
Yeah.
Like, so there's different branches of Buddhism and different ideas, because there's like the classical older Buddhism, which there is a distinct heaven and hell, but then there's a
Amitabha Buddha
considered newer version where it's like this is it. Like this is hell.
Yeah.
And if it is, what are you going to do? Like, are you going to live and make happiness within yourself? Or are you going to be overwhelmed by that fact and fight against it the whole time, that you have to, as the third book is called, accept it. And so I actually think that was actually
acceptance. Wait, what are the names of the books again? It's Annihilation.
Annihilation.
Death.
No, it's
no.
Annihilation.
I know. Annihilation.
Authority?
What I mean is death.
Yeah,
Annihilation.
Authority.
Acceptance. Absolution.
And absolution.
What's the definition exactly of absolution?
Being absolved
of your sins,
of a crime.
Yeah, having the burden lifted, sort of.
That's interesting. I don't know if I can understand it fully yet without reading the other books again.
I think maybe, like, if we think about old Jim, at the point where he gives in, in a certain sense, he is absolved of a lot of the things he hates about himself, and he becomes part of this bigger thing. Like maybe by becoming part of it. But again, I don't know.
What about Lowry in comparison to that thesis?
Jim,
you know what I mean?
Kind of lets go of his pain and kind of embraces the future, like, because he's been so stuck in the past and what could have been, and the loss of his daughter, and the feeling that he has to find her again, even though he can't.
I don't think Lowry is absolved.
I don't know. I would agree,
because Lowry is going back to the beginning.
Yeah.
Yep. And he's obsessed. And he's obsessed with the idea of being perceived as a hero. He has not accepted
he is
and come
so
out
cute
the other
in a way.
side.
It's so cute and so pathetic how he is just constantly overcompensating and trying to be the biggest man with the biggest dick.
It's hysterical. And I'm so excited to reread the second book and him as the voice on the phone as the Megalodon. And experience him and see what clicks and feels familiar.
Yeah.
And if it does, is Vandermeer a good enough author that it does?
I think he is. I
think so too.
Every experience so far has just been excellent. And I really can't emphasize much that I came into this being like, I don't think this book needed to be written. And now I'm like, the context.
Yeah, I was going in thinking, like, I love Vandermeer's writing. I've been sending this to Will all week. It's like, I love his writing, but what are we doing here?
Yeah.
Is there even a plot?
Apparently.
And now I'm like,
we are. Yeah, because I only finished the book this morning.
Me too.
So only then did I really connect that how we're circling back to the past. And I think there is something really interesting about Whitby and this theory of how to influence the past to build the desired future.
Yeah.
Because how do you do that?
By being a better version of yourself in the past, so that way the present. So always having to be, I don't know, that's like a weird message to take away from that, I guess. I don't know.
Also, the fact that Whitby and the Tyrant become like, again, assuming Whitby's the rogue, this little like symbiotic, and then she lets him die. like she buries him in the water. Like it's just mwah. It's just excellent. This is so good, and
so
I'm so glad I feel like this now. I honestly, I'm so excited.
It feels
now.
like you originally ate merely a simple,
human foot.
but in actuality, you've had a scrumptious turkey dinner.
Yep, ending with pie.
Yep, exactly. So that being said, ladies, I'm curious because I want to start the trend. What would you rate this book out of a 10? Maria, and then, oh wait, hold on a second.
I don't think I can answer this yet. I do not think I can answer this yet. I think I need to reread, because again, at the start of this, I would have been like, it's really well written and there was some great scenes, but I probably would have given it like a 6.
Yeah.
And now I'm like,
yep.
Okay.
It is incredible. Peak. And so I think I need to read the whole series. And I think this is one of those series where you can rank the individual books within it, but that you have to give a rating holistically.
This is A Song of Ice and Fire for me. That it is also interconnected, that while the individual pieces may be good, they are building to a one big cohesive story that must be graded as a separate thing.
Yes, 100%. So we shall rate, and if you're interested to see our rating of the whole thing, you wait for the video where we talk about the whole series as a retrospective, a series retrospective. That Will is definitely going to schedule for us and put on the calendar.
Which is so, it just like, I feel so bad because if anybody stumbles across this and they're like, wow, I want to really start with the first episode that they did on this, my audio is so shit because I just moved into my house.
I think we've done an excellent job, ladies. You're a pleasure as always, and I hope you all enjoyed watching this and you're as excited as we are for the video that's definitely getting put on the schedule that we're definitely doing, Will. That it'll be the series retrospective of this. And I love you, our parasocial darlings. Bye!
Bye.